Hi, welcome to Pro Shop Talk. My name is Daniel. I'm the technical director here at RW Supply and Design. And in this series, we're talking about sealers. Today, I get the privilege of interviewing Dave Cambra. He is our rep from DuraSeal. Dave was also a contractor for 30 plus years, so he has a lot of experience in sand and finish. So welcome, Dave.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. In this series, we're just talking about sealers. I get a lot of questions about sealers. There's confusion about sealers. The terms to seal something is kind of a general term in a lot of people's minds. So people think finish seal stuff, stain seal stuff, sealers, what are those? And so I get a lot of questions about kind of where they fit in the sand and finish system that guys have. So hopefully you can give us some good information on what sealers are kind of as a standalone product. So I guess my first question to you is, briefly, how would you describe what a sealer is?
So a sealer is a product that will take and seal your wood to avoid grain raise and side bonding of hardwood flooring.
So where does a sealer go in that sand and finish system, different from a finish?
So a sealer will always be applied prior to your finish.
Okay, so it's like the first coat before you put your finish down.
That's correct.
For you guys at DuraSeal, and for you as a contractor, would you recommend how many coats would you recommend that a guy put down on a floor overall? And, where would that seal coat go down in that system?
So its recommendation is a minimum 2 coats. Commercial environments, they would recommend 3 coats.
Okay.
We always recommend a sealer. However, if you are using a sealer, you will have to use a 3-coat system. So you will always have to have 2 coats of finish on your floor at all times.
So always 2 coats of finish, but that seal coat, if you're using that, would be your first coat. So it'd be sealer, finish at a minimum.
Correct.
Okay, so guy's gonna put down that sealer, and what benefits is a contractor gonna see putting down sealer before their finish as opposed to only putting finish on a floor?
Well, sealer is actually a larger molecule product. So what you're doing is you're creating a base for your first coat of finish. So it also will help to control grain raise and helps to control tannin pull.
Tannin pull. So that'd be like a burn mark on a floor. Like if I start to apply finish to a raw floor, pour a bunch of finish down, leave a burn mark in there.
Correct. Yeah, you'll see it either in a pour line or you can see it in a T-bar application.
Okay. Yep. So you stop your T-bar and you've got a line there or something like that.
Correct.
Gotcha. So the sealer's not going to do that on the wood.
That's correct. The sealer is going to avoid you getting tannin pull when applicating your finish.
Okay. And the larger molecule, what benefits that giving me? Is that giving me build or what?
Yeah, so your larger molecule is meaning that you're going to get less absorption into the wood. So you're going to actually get a better build on top of the wood. And then at the same time, the end result is as you apply your final coat, you're going to have a much smoother and a better build of finish.
I think that's one of the things that's a little counterintuitive for guys because they see sealer on the shelf. It's cheaper than finish. In people's mine as well, cheaper means not as good. But you're saying the less expensive product sets you up for a better final build.
Yeah, it's an advantage to use a sealer. There's multiple advantages. Part is, we'll start with cost. I mean, it is a cheaper, less expensive product to purchase. Therefore, you're applicating one of your coats at a cost advantage to the contractor. So the contractor is going to put a little bit more money in his pocket. It's going to serve as one of his build coats. Also, the sealer again is a larger molecule product. It's going to ultimately give you a better end result when applicated under the recommendations of coverage. So the other important part is not to applicate too thin, and it's not always better to go too thick.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's just counterintuitive. So I'm going to get better build with a less expensive product starting out because it's going to provide a better platform for the finish.
That's correct.
So now, is there ever an instance you'd put a sealer above the finish, or is the sealer always going to go below?
Yeah, sealer will always go below. You would never want to put sealer on top of finish. There would be no reason behind it. It would not accomplish anything.
Gotcha. The finish is what wears. The sealer doesn't wear. The sealer just is that foundation for the finish.
That's correct.
So what about stain? I mean, you guys represent a large portion of the stain market, and a lot of contractors will say, oh, I use stain, I don't need sealer. You know, in guys' mind, they think stain is synonymous with sealer or replaces sealer. So is that true, or would you use a sealer over a stain?
It's always a good idea to use a sealer. In the DuraSeal line of stains, we have resins and linseed oil that will serve as a sealer and also a bonding agent to the fibers of the wood when using the DuraSeal stain. You can do just coats of finish over the top of a DuraSeal stain. However, with the high tannin woods, you run the risk of tannin pools still. So we would always recommend a sealer.
Okay, so you're still going to get, even if you put stain down, the sealer is still going to give you those benefits you talked about. So you're still potentially going to get less grain raise. You're going to get, or you're going to mitigate side bonding. And then what about white lining? Does sealer do anything with white lining at all, like help prevent or?
You know, typically white lining is more in the finish itself. So it's a stretching of the finish. And so typically when you see a white line, it's usually going to be with a water-based product. And it's the finish stretching and turning white and not breaking.
With that, if you had a sealer underneath the finish versus only finish, would you get a difference in that stretching and breaking, or?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think the sealer is going to help with the tannin pool, the side bonding,
Okay.
the grain raise.
Okay, gotcha. And then the application issues like you talked about. And then also, I guess, like even if you had a stain, you're talking about that build. So I assume that sealer would still give you more build over a stain as well.
Absolutely. So it kind of the way we like to explain it is sealers are a larger molecule than finish. So if you took a basketballs as an example, and you set 10 basketballs down on the floor versus 10 ping pong balls, you're going to have a much better buildup of product than the smaller molecules, which would represent a ping pong ball.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Is there any instance, like practically speaking, as a contractor, you would recommend somebody not use a sealer?
I would say no. Not in DuraSeal. Our sealers can be used at all times. Really, it's more about you should always use a sealer 100% of the time over raw wood.
Okay.
In a water-based finish system.
So if you're going over raw wood, you're going to recommend always using a sealer.
Correct. And we even recommend as DuraSeal to do 2 coats of water-based sealer anytime you're over a high tannin wood, which is white oak, Brazilian cherry, American walnut, etc.
Okay. And the recommendation to do 2 coats, is that to block tannin or?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, that is correct.
Tell me a little bit about the sealers you guys make and carry.
Yeah, so DuraSeal makes 3 sealers. One is an oil-based sealer called the Quick Dry Sealer. 2 are water-based sealers. One of those is a DuraClear sealer. The other is a Fast Dry Sandable sealer. Starting with the oil-based sealer, it's your basic oil-based product. I mean, it's going to come in a can. It's going to require intercoat abrasion. You can never hot coat an oil-based product. The water-based products, we have a DuraClear sealer, and just in the title of the product, it says clear, which tells you it's a non-ambering clear product. Never changes over time. The Fast Dry Sandable sealer is just as it states in the description. It is a sandable, abradable product. It does have some color to it. So to enhance any color you may have on the floor, you can use a Fast Dry sanding sealer and you'll enhance that. You can abrade it if you would like, but also both water-based sealers can be hot coated.
They can both be hot coated. What's the time frame to hot coat those?
Well, it's, we give it, we say 2 to 3 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Two to 3 hours after it dries, and then limited by how long?
We have a 24-hour window.
Okay, 24-hour window.
Yep.
When would somebody use your oil-based sealer versus your water-based sealer? Sounds like the water-based sealers, that's mostly a color preference. Your fast dry sanding sealer is got a little bit of color in it. DuraClear is clear, so it sounds like that's mostly a color difference. When would somebody use like the water-based versus the oil-based?
Well, I think in part the DuraClear sealer is going to be a higher acrylic product, so you're going to find that to be the best tannin blocker. So you would use the DuraClear sealer over the fast dry water-based sealer if you're sealing a high tannin wood. Okay. You would want to use that. Using the oil-based sealer, it's kind of a color thing, I think, and when I was a contractor doing floors and I wanted to achieve a natural but with some color depth, I would actually use an oil-based sealer, which has about a 4-hour dry time, and then abrade it in 4 hours and then apply my coats of water-based.
Okay, so I just gave the wood a nice, rich oil look, but yet you could still put water base over the top of that.
That's correct.
Okay. Interesting. And then with your water-based sealers, if you put down the fast dry sanding sealer as your first coat, you'd put DuraClear over the top of that. If you're going over natural wood using a 2-sealer system. Or is it the other way around?
If you were going over raw wood, you would want to use the DuraClear sealer.
Okay, DuraClear first because that's the higher tannin block.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And then if you wanted to add color, a little bit of color to that, you could move from DuraClear to your fast dry sanding sealer.
You could, and yeah, there wouldn't be a problem with that. That would be okay. Okay.
Is there any instance where you would put a sealer on top of a finish?
There isn't.
No.
Yeah, there'd never be a reason to do that. Sealers are not made for wearability, so your floor would just look, it would look terrible in a very, very short time.
A question I always like to ask contractors, myself included, find creative ways to mess systems up. And so if somebody was going to mess up one of your sealer products, what would be the easiest pitfalls they could avoid so that they don't mess it up?
Well, I think number one is reading the back of the bottle. So there are some differences, and the difference between our 2 water-based sealers are the DuraClear sealer cannot be rolled. And so if someone were to roll it, they would experience some issues with that. The fast dry sandable sealer is abradable, but with guys water popping their stained floors these days, that's a popular way of doing it. It's probably better to hot coat it because there is always a concern of burning through the sealer over especially dark wood floors.
Okay. And application of the oil-based product, can you roll, T-bar? What would you recommend for that?
Yeah, it's all application methods except rolling.
Except rolling on the oil-based side.
Yeah.
Where would you recommend ideally somebody do their intercoat abrasion? I know you said on the oil side, intercoat abrade between every oil coat. On the water side, is it easiest to put your sealer down and then hot coat over that with finish and then buff? Like let's say on your fast dry sanding sealer, the one that you can actually abrade, do most guys hot coat over the top of that and then buff that finish coat before the final, or are most guys actually buffing the fast dry sanding sealer?
I think you're going to find these days that most guys are hot coating. Again, I think with the water popping that's done to the raw wood prior to stain, I think abrading a sealer is always going to be questionable. So I think in the industry, for the most part, I think guys are going to be hot coating their sealers. Both water-based sealers in DuraSeal can be hot coated.
Yep. Awesome. Well, that's a lot of good information. Appreciate you answering my question and being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that.